G'day Guardians, it's Matt here, and today I'm going to guide you through a solo flawless Grasp of Avarice dungeon using a hunter. I did this run after a handful of attempts, and I figured instead of just giving you the loadout, the strats, or making you just watch the gameplay, I could provide some commentary over the top and let you know where I was dying in my runs and what was going through my mind at certain points. There'll be timestamps down below if there's a certain point that you'd like to skip to, and there's also a mute button if you can't stand the thought of me coaching you through this. This felt like one of the more easier dungeons to solo flawless, so I hope this guide can help you. If it does, please consider dropping the video a like and subscribing. We're now 1,200 subscribers strong after just 4 months of making videos, so join along for the ride. Now, for the loadout, it's nice and simple. You're only going to need 5 weapons and 1 exotic piece of armor. You'll need Witherhoard, a good feeling SMG. I chose Extraordinary Rendition, but something like Multimac or Friction Fire would work fine as well. Cartesian Coordinate, Lament, and Falling Guillotine, or any other legendary sword that feels good to you. I know any of the new ones with Eager Edge are a favorite. These weapons will rotate in and out. Cartesian Coordinate will stay on for the entire dungeon though, but Extraordinary Rendition and Lament will be for both boss encounters, and Witherhoard and Falling Guillotine will be there for everything else in the interim, including the servitors and the shield encounter. For the exotic armor piece, you'll want to run the 6th Coyote, and that pairs very nicely with Top Tree Void, giving us double dodges, essentially giving us double stealth whenever we need it. I know there's other exotics that provide stealth like Graviton Forefoot or Assassin's Cowl, but those provide extended periods of stealth, whereas we don't need stealth at a long period of time, we just need it on convenience, so having 2 dodges is perfect here. For the mods, we are running Charge with Light setup with 2 ways of actually getting Charge with Light. There's Taking Charge, which is just a standard, and Quick Charge, where rapid multi-kills with fusion rifles will make us charge with light. We have charged up on our chest piece and supercharged on the legs, which will allow us to have 5 stacks of Charge with Light in total, leaving us with Lucent Blade, an absolute killer 35% damage buff on our sword, consuming our stacks of Charge with Light. Because Quick Charge is an arc mod, it is proccing Lucent Blade's secondary perk, which is a must for optimal damage, allowing our charge rate to increase with our sword. The secondary perk for Quick Charge isn't as important for the loadout. For ammo economy, I have 2 sword finders on and the seasonal sword scavenger mod, which does read to give a larger bonus reserves for the sword, so don't use the standard ones, make sure that you're using the one from the seasonal artifact. The last mod is the most important, and that's Passive Guard, allowing you to tank full stomps from the Ogre and just about survive anything. I know there's plenty of strats using Sleep Simulant for the both bosses, but for the survivability aspect here, this mod just turns this dungeon into easy mode. So put Particle Deconstruction on the back burner and put Passive Guard on. Alright, so we're ready to tackle this dungeon. Everything from the beginning up until the Ogre is just a lot of running, jumping, and avoiding traps. I honestly just force myself to memorize and optimize the path as fast as possible so that if I ever did wipe, it wouldn't take me as long to get back into another flawless attempt. I'm not going to provide a comprehensive detailed run of all these early sections purely just to save time, and I figured that if you're watching a solo flawless guide, you already know all the nuances to getting yourself to the boss encounters. But for all this in the beginning, I recommend practice and just getting yourself through as quick as possible, but as safe as possible. This is where you want to crutch onto your double dodge, providing you with invisibility if you ever need it. You'll start with collecting your engrams in the loot cave. Your super will be refreshed every time you get 10 engrams, so pop that tether at every chance that you can. It'll help speed up the process. Pairing it with Witherhoard makes that part extremely easy. Once you head down, just stealth past everything. There's no need to take any fights here. We're just playing it safe and we're playing it quick. Go through and activate the switches. Just be mindful of your triple jump. I did have a silly death here from just not paying attention to my triple jump, and just don't forget where the traps are. For this room, I just did an extended long triple jump with the sword swing to save time on the switches, but after taking out the Shrieker and the Knights, head on through the door, pop a Witherhoard on the walkway below, it'll take care of those ads that run across. Same deal in this room though, activate your switches, grab the Scorch Cannon, grab the secret chest if you haven't already this week, and don't die to the Barrel of Death. And now it's time for the Ogre, and this is where we're going to swap out our Witherhoard for Extraordinary Rendition and Falling Guillotine for Lament. After dropping a flag and jumping over, my advice is to not grab the engrams that those initial ads drop. This caused me a couple wipes purely due to some bad RNG where the Scorch Cannon guy was being annoying to kill, or the Thrall would come up and flinch me when I was trying to aim up the Scorch Cannon shot, and I would eventually die to the Burden by Riches debuff. So it's not worth grabbing them and giving yourself that time pressure for an avoidable death. It's worth noting that you can also grab the Scorch Cannon from underneath the platform that he's on, so you don't have to risk yourself up on top of it to the Ogre's laser beam. The 2 rooms will give you enough engrams to activate damage phase, which is 25 in total, and every 10 engrams you collect will give you your super back. So when I open up a room, I'll shoot my tether out and go to town. I try and use my Cartesian coordinate to gather my 5 stacks of Charge with Light so that Lucent Blade is primed for the boss damage phase, and after dunking 25 engrams, it's time for damage phase. The strat with Lament isn't overly difficult, but to maximize your damage output, you'll want to do 4 light attacks with Banshee's Wail and then a heavy attack. And while you're charging back up, keep the damage going with just standard light attack swings, then repeat over and over until damage phase is done. I've always 3-phased the Ogre, doing it solo, so as long as you get the cycle down pat, you'll be fine. The rhythm is just get the Scorch Cannon, open the door, use your tether, collect the engrams, bank the 13 or 14 from the first room, use the Scorch Cannon again to open the second door, use the tether again, collect the engrams, bank them for damage. Things to keep note of are that the Scorch Cannon and your Charge with Light stacks. The Scorch Cannon will disappear after 20 seconds, so after you drop it, kill some ads and come back and grab it for a second, and then just drop it and keep doing your business, and repeat. And just keeping an eye on how many stacks of Charge with Light that you have, that is important because 5 stacks of Lucent Blade will usually last you an entire damage phase. Make sure that you're going stealth whenever you're in trouble, and with the combination of Tether, Passive Guard, and Lament's Healing, you have the perfect recipe for survival. After 3 damage phases, the first official counter is done, and hopefully you're rewarded with a God Roll Matador. After making your way down, it's time for the Sparrow part. A lot of people suggest running Risk Runner for this because the damage resist procs while you're on your Sparrow when the Hive is shooting you. I never found myself needing this because the always on time Sparrow intrinsically deters ads from shooting you. But if you don't have this Sparrow, then I would recommend just putting Risk Runner on for the Sparrow part. The only piece of advice I can give for this section is just practice. I died in this part 3 times, just doing silly things with my Sparrow. One of the deaths was heartbreaking though. I didn't quite capture C properly. I skimmed through the outside of the ring and it only capped 88% of it, and therefore I just died. So always try to ride through the middle of each one the best that you can. You'll want to grab all of the mine detonation extensions along the way, and sometimes people will jump off the Sparrow just before the C mine to spawn a new Sparrow. Just keep an eye on your boost levels to see if that's necessary or not though. I don't know what it was, but the final jump was always super RNG for me as to whether or not my Sparrow would just explode on impact. So just brace yourself for that, because if your Sparrow does blow up, it'll be a long cooldown to summon another one. But capture the D mine and you'll be set to go through the cave. Don't forget the secret chest along the way. Now for my most dreaded encounter in the whole dungeon. For this, we want to change back to Witherhoard and Falling Guillotine to help us with ad control. There's not a lot to say here besides don't freak out if one of the bombs rolls off the edge. You can afford to lose 1, and if you do lose 2, then there is a chance that the game will crash and give you an error code. In my flawless run here, I lost one of the bombs. It's annoying, but just stay cool, calm, and collected and move on. Remember that every 10 engrams will give you a tether, and that's going to be your best friend here in an encounter that I like to consider very, very lonely. You'll want to pop that super every time that you get it. Just make sure that all of the lifts are lined up properly, and brace every landing that you do with a jump. One of my failed flawless attempts was purely because I forgot to jump before landing, and I just randomly died on impact. There's not a lot more to add here besides patience is key. Don't let the Scorch Cannon guy on each island bother you. You can take care of him if you want to, but make sure that you're being careful when handling the bombs. It does feel like the longest part of the solo flawless, but if you can survive the Sparrow part and you can get through this encounter, you're on the home stretch because they are both harder than the final boss in my opinion. After you head on up, you'll want to switch Witherhoard out for your SMG and your sword for Lament. The same principle applies with your Charge with Light stacks. You'll want to make sure that you have 5 stacks heading into any of the damage phases. This should take 3 damage phases in total, so make sure that you stay patient and just trust the process. When you kick things off, pop a tether at the doorway and do your best to take out both of the named enemies. This will give you a lot of breathing room when sorting out your engrams. If you make sure to utilize your stealth whenever you need to bank engrams, then you'll be totally fine here. I like to stay on the left side of the room because you can see both Scorch Cannon activation points from either end. Remember, you'll need 60 engrams to activate the damage phase. If you're in Strife, pop your tether at the ads since you'll get another one back when you collect 10 more engrams. If you're quick enough, you'll be able to collect all 10 from the left side and all 10 from the middle. But if you want to take it safer, then just keep collecting the left-hand side ones, depending on how confident that you're feeling. Once you've banked a total of 60, pop your invincibility and play hide and seek with the boss around the crystal. For damage, pop your tether and go ham on the boss. Give him everything that you've got. A good damage phase will see you probably use all of your Lament ammo, but that's totally fine. With the Sword Scav mod on, it'll only take a couple ammo bricks to fill it back up again for the next damage phase. I've never had an issue with not having any ammo, so please don't stress about that. Because we use that tether on the damage phase, it means that we won't have it to take on the 2 named enemies that will spawn back in. If I had any Lament ammo spare, I'd try and use it and clip them on the way out, but it's not too important to let them live for a little bit. Grab the Scorch Cannon and you can whittle the Shank down with about 6 to 8 fully charged Scorch Cannon shots. If you run out of Scorch Cannon, just patiently wait for the next Vandal to come along and take his. On this second round of collecting engrams, I did let the bosun live for the time being and focus on the task at hand, just getting the engrams. I knew that I'd be able to pop a few Cartesian shots into him when I banked some engrams along the way. He ended up wanting to brawl on the middle island a few times, so the Scorch Cannon just toasted him. After 60 engrams were banked, it was time for the second damage phase, and same thing as before, just going hard in the paint with Lament and doing our thing. I managed to get some decent swings in on the named enemies when they came out, but it's the same as before. Whittle down the Shank with the Scorch Cannon and you'll be fine. For this last round of collecting engrams, I did make one massive mistake that nearly cost me the entire flawless run. I decided to leave the bosun up because I didn't feel like he was going to be much of a threat. So as the third damage phase came around, you'll notice that I start taking a lot of damage, and that was because he was just peppering me from the side and from the back. Even though it worked out for me, I was super annoyed with myself for making that one single lazy decision that could have cost me the entire run here. But there it is, solo flawless Grasp of Avarice with a Hunter, earning yourself the insanely cool pirate ship emblem and the ensilvered snare shader. At the time of this recording, there's only about 3% of the player population who've acquired this according to the amazing Braytech website, so I hope this guide can help you and help some more people acquire it. But that's everything from me, guys. If this helped you out, consider dropping the video a like, it'd be much appreciated. And as always, take it easy, Guardians.